I know that we discussed last year a few topics for the class this year, and they're all great topics. But then I chose for the modern philosophers, is that what it was called? The series on modern Jewish thinkers. I chose for one of my classes this summer, I chose to teach one from this book, Teku, and it was great. It was great. It was on Shiva Tammuz, and I picked one. I'll tell you in a moment what it is. I picked one that was about whether at the time of the Bar Kokhba revolt, which has to do a little bit with Shiva Tammuz because it had to do with the siege and the war in Israel at the time when we were mourning the destruction of the temple. So it was one of the preambles to that. So should you or should you not support it? The thing about this book, and it was just great. It was interesting for me. It was interesting for people on. It was about history. What does teku mean? Do people know what teku means?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Go for it, Vivian.
When you don't know the answer to a question and you can't, and the people discussing just can't come to any resolution of it, they say teku. That tishbi yifarish kushot tabirot when Eliyahu Hanavi comes. So
Tishbi is Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Tishbi, right?
That if we can't figure it out now, eventually it'll be figured out at the time that.
Beautiful. So Taf is for Tishbi, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Tishbi, something we sing Motzei Shabbat after Havdalah. Everybody with me? Please raise your hand if you have any questions or if something I'm saying. Okay, great. And what is teku used in modern Hebrew? Anybody know what it's used for in modern Hebrew?
I think they use it just when they don't know the answer to something. They just can't. No. Okay.
Good. That was a good try, though.
Something like that.
I mean, it also means that because it's from our rabbinic literature. Yes. But what else does it mean? It's used as a tie in a game, like in a sports game.
Okay.
You would say, let's say, in a soccer game, if you said teku shtayim, it means that the final score was 2-2. So there's no resolution, right? That's what it means. It's the same idea that there's no resolution, even though that doesn't mean that when Eliyahu Tishbi comes, that he's going to resolve it. But so it was adapted to mean a tie. Now, what Chaim Navon, he has some really nice books. And my daughter actually learned with him. She said, "Oh, Rav Chaimi." I said, yeah, Rav Chaimi. I never know him as Rav Chaimi. I only know him as Chaim Navon. She said he's a wonderful teacher. She really enjoyed studying with him in college. And he wrote a number of books. This is one of them. It's 101 teku, unresolved debates. Teku means that there's no resolution, which means that there are two sides and we don't actually have a resolution for it. Now, it may not be necessary to have a resolution for it. It may be something, this is interesting and this is interesting. But the point is that don't ask me then, so which one is right? Because I won't be able to tell you because they're all unresolved debates, but they're all classic debates. Some of them are about history. Some of them are about culture. They're all Jewish and from our tradition. And I just got such positive response from the class in the summer that I thought, let's try this. Now, it is in Hebrew. So my challenge is each time to prepare it in a way that will be, it'll work for this group, who are not native Hebrew speakers, but I enjoy that. And I will try each time to prepare a source sheet that talks about it and people can offer as well. But what I looked for, everybody with me on the teku business? In Hebrew, it says 101 vikuchim gdolim, which means grand arguments, shel hayadut, of Judaism. So they're all about Judaism, but they're not all in the same general category, as you can see. Like that was clearly historical. I'm going to tell you what the one I chose for today. I decided to look. You just see that I don't know if you can see. Can you see I have pink Post-its in here? Yeah. So as I was going through, I said, let me look for one about Israel, because that just felt very relevant. The same way that for Shiva Tammuz, thank you so much, Chico. I need boosters. Okay, good. I don't feel like I'm in the lands of the giants. So yes, Bert. I don't hear you. You're not muted, but I don't hear you.
Oh.
Is that just me? Oh, there, now I hear you.
Pardon my ignorance, but who is he?
Chaim Navon. So
Yes.
of course, when I prepared last time, that's when hold on one second. I'm going to look it up here because I put it in my first source sheet about Chaim Navon, but I didn't copy it for this one. So give me a moment and I will look up my older source sheet. Just a minute. Because I have all the information there. And I'm so sorry, you're right. I should have done that. So I apologize. Okay. Chaim Navon. Not there. Wait. Don't give up. Maybe it's here. Yes. Tishbi Yitaretz Kushiyot Sheilot. Here we go. Okay. He is an Israeli author, thinker, columnist, rabbi, philosopher, writer, and publicist. He is the Rab of Kehilat Shimshoni, which is a shul in Modi'in. He teaches Gemara and Jewish thought in Midreshet Lindenbaum and in Herzog College, which is associated with the Yeshivat Har Etzion. My daughter learned in Herzog, and she was really blessed to have many excellent teachers from Har Etzion as well. He writes a weekly column for Makor Rishon. Makor Rishon is a modern Orthodox, that's the best way I call it, newspaper in Hebrew. He has written 6 books on Jewish topics and 2 novels. His books include Caught in the Thicket, that sounds like the ram from Akedat Yitzchak, an introduction to the thought of Rav Soloveitchik, Genesis and Jewish thought, A Bridge for Jacob's Daughters, the status of women in Jewish law. That sounds like a great topic for a class. Between past and future. Oh, this is the next one that I thought would be really cool to learn. Eve did not eat an apple. 101 common mistakes in Judaism. He received, okay, he has a Rav, he has a master's degree in Jewish thought. And okay, Reb Chaim Navon. Once you see his name, you probably will see his name again.
Question.
Yeah, Judy.
You told us what the tough was for Teku, but what is the Yud and the Kuf and the Vav? What do they stand for?
Tishbi, Yitaretz means a terutz is either an excuse or an explanation
Is that with
or
an
a
I
reason.
or an Aleph? Yitaretz.
No. Yitaretz, Yud Tafresh Tzadik.
Okay.
Like tirza.
Right.
Yitaretz, a terutz, yeah.
Right.
Kushiyot, which means unanswered questions, and she'elot, which is also, kushiyot comes from the word kashe. So it's like something that we don't know the answer to, and she'elot are questions. And you could look it up, by the way, Judy, you'll find it really easily. It's not it's a very, very, very famous word, but it is an acronym. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure, pleasure. Okay, so back to what I was saying. I picked out 5 different articles in here. They're short articles that I thought might be related to something going on in Israel. And I decided when I hit this one, I said, okay, that's the one. The name of this one is Lama Dafka Eretz Israel, meaning why is our homeland specifically this piece of land? Everybody with me? Lama Dafka, and I have a source sheet. I'm going to share it. Would it be helpful to people if you also could look at it, or is it enough that I share it on the screen? Whatever you want.
Share it on the screen.
Yeah, and if you can put a link, do you have a link to it also that you
Yeah,
can...
I have a link. So give me a moment. I will get the link and drop it in. And then those who want to can look on the screen, and those who want to can look on their own.
Is that as opposed to, Zimbabwe?
I'm sorry, say that again.
As opposed to Zimbabwe? In other words, the question is, why is it our land as opposed to what? In other words,
Yes, as opposed to Zimbabwe. Exactly. Why Dafka Eretz Israel? Look, there are many debates. It's just interesting to bring the arguments on one side or another. What is there? It's not. I'm not actually sure. You're right. It's not as opposed to Zimbabwe. It's more about what are the specific reasons that Eretz Yisrael, that God chose this particular piece of land. Does that make sense? Make more sense, Bert?
Sort of what I'm saying though is we have so much material that says, God gave us the land with Eretz Canaan and this and that. So now you might say, why did God give us Eretz Canaan and perform all the miracles and stuff like that? And that goes back to Abraham, where he was promised the land, and
No,
then
100%. No, we're not questioning that God promised us
this
this.
land as opposed to other lands.
Bert, 1 second. We're
Mhm.
not questioning that God promised us this land, but
Mhm.
there is an interesting philosophical or whatever you want to call it. He
He
put it
promised this
under.
land as opposed to other lands.
So 1 second. That's what I said. It's not as opposed to in the sense that the people who gave reasons didn't say, oh, he could have chosen Africa or could have chosen this. It's more about what people think, why God Dafka chose Eretz Yisrael. I can't really answer your question. But yes, God could have chosen any land in the whole earth. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Do you agree with that, Bert? Yeah, thank you, Vivian.
Yeah.
Theoretically,
In
could
fact,
God have chosen any area in the whole? I mean, I would hope that God wouldn't have
this
chosen
is really the
Antarctica.
problem, because there's no water and it's all barren. And I think one reason is they would have to pray to God and make sure that there's rain at the time. They have
Not they, we.
what's that?
We,
That
not they, we.
that we would have to pray, make sure that we do the right thing so that we have a proper harvest, and we could celebrate Sukkot and be very happy, and bring the Bikurim on Shavuot and all that.
You
So
mean that the fact that we have to pray connects to agriculture of the whole year?
right. I mean, food, we need food to survive. And that these are the things that are necessary so that we have proper food. And so I think it was an appropriate place.
Mm-hmm. Bert, does that answer your question of what the question is?
I mean, there are other lands that well, I think that's very good. Okay, but we used to joke, why couldn't God just have chosen Eretz Israel and Saudi Arabia so we could have all the oil?
Great question. Right. I don't have an answer for that one, but that would be helpful too, right? And
Yeah.
yet look what we've done. Look what we've
Happen
done.
here, but as I say, from a political standpoint and social and economic standpoint, being able to have all of these things would be a wonderful thing. But obviously, God chose not to.
Right. So maybe I mean, the articles are short, so it's not, they're about 2 pages each one, but it brings different reasons or different thoughts. And I think that it could be something for us to discuss. I want to see how it goes and if we enjoy learning. I mean, I enjoyed reading about it, and I want to see if this is interesting for the group as well. So let's see. And the other thing for us to think about is if we would like to have 2 for each one, which is also a possibility because they're so short, but I just wasn't sure. So we're trying it out now and we're going to see how it works for us. Okay.
As
And
a follow,
actually,
as
yeah,
a follow-up to what Vivian said, it
yeah,
makes a connection with Hashem so much stronger, because if we are in the land, unlike Saudi Arabia that already has the blessing of the oil, if we're in the barren land where we have to reach out to Hashem, it creates or underscores, I should say, our connection to Hashem. So it's not
beautiful.
land of Israel and the Jewish people, it's the land of Jewish people together with Hashem. And it's the
Very
land
nice.
where we find Hashem.
Right. And Vivian and Judy together, your reasons actually create one side of the argument. And we'll see that when we look, and you'll see that that tallies exactly. Before we even continue, I thought it would be interesting for us to talk about here. Why do we feel such a connection to the land?
Mhm.
Well,
I would really like to hear. So 1 second, Vivian. Bird, all good. I just want to give other people a chance first, if they have something to say. Anybody else has a thought about this? Not yet. Okay, Bert, and then, oh, Milton, yeah, Bakasha.
Yeah, well, a lot of the Chagim, like almost all of the Chagim, they relate to the land.
Yeah, that's what Vivian and Judy are both said. Yeah, Vivian said, right, okay. So you're saying we feel connected because when we celebrate the Chagim, which we do all the time or every year, it reminds us of the land. That's where you feel a connection personally?
Mhm.
Well, that's a big part of Judaism, Orthodox Judaism.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing. I just want to tap into it because it's so interesting that, I don't know about everybody here, but in general, Jews all over the world go to Israel. And in fact, the whole birthright was bringing people who don't feel affiliated or connected to Israel. What is it about having a piece of land that we think or we feel we know is promised us? What does that do for us? I think that's what to me was interesting. And we're going to get to the source sheet, of course, but
It's a Yerusha.
it's a Yerusha, it's an inheritance. Good. What does that mean? You say
Well,
more?
you take it with you.
Beautiful. It's what?
A Yerusha, I guess you could spend it all at once, and then you don't have it anymore. And you know
But
what?
not land. Land you can't spend.
Well,
I mean, I guess you could use up the nutrients, but you can't spend the land. It's a physical piece. It's like, right, it's owning something that can't be removed, theoretically.
it can be sold.
Right, it could be sold, correct. But if it's given as a Yerusha, it's handed down. Any other thoughts about the connection to the land and what does that do for us? Why it's so important? I think that does every nation slash country have a connection to a piece of land? That's something that's part of our identity.
Mm.
Any thoughts about that? Yeah, Ted. I'll get to you, Vivian.
Yeah,
Ted.
yeah.
Okay, just a couple of things. Yehuda Halevi, who late in life traveled at great danger, at great risk to Israel, said it was because the windows of heaven are opposite Jerusalem. I'm not sure I believe that, but in the Middle Ages, if you look at medieval maps, Jerusalem was at the center of the world. Jerusalem, if you look at the maps, Jerusalem is often dead center in what their conception of the world looked like.
Mhm.
I think for modern times, we feel that, people, we were just in Philadelphia. People visit Independence Hall because it's one of the founding sites of the country. People visit famous battlefields. You go to Israel, you tread the land where our ancient ancestors walked and where they did things. And you feel a connection with them and with all of the Jewish people.
Right. I think that goes to what Milton said, that it's a Yerusha inheritance.
Yeah, right.
That when you walk the land, reminds me of the song from Exodus, this land is mine, God gave this land to me. But the idea, when I walk this land, this great something and ancient land. So yeah, that's really is saying what I feel that way. The first time I went up to the Temple Mount, I was like, my brain couldn't really absorb it. I said, wow, this is where the Beit HaMikdash was. Like, that's crazy. My brain couldn't process it. Beautiful. Does somebody have something to add to that? Robert, did you want to add something? Robert Moshe? No, you just have your hand up.
Yeah.
Something to add to that? Bert and then Vivian?
Yeah, I'm going to sort of be the wet blanket since I just put one on. Not wet blanket. Most of my connection nowadays is because we have so much family in Israel.
Right. But why do you have family in Israel? Where does that come from?
Oh, that's because they decided that the history of the Jewish people is taking place in Israel. And that's why. And I'm not sure per se that Israel, if their history of the Jewish people had been taking place in, again, in Saudi Arabia, as opposed to there, and the Beis HaMikdash had been built there as opposed to I mean, I'm not sure that per se the land itself makes a difference, but whatever
Oh,
the
you're
reason.
saying you're not sure whether that particular, because God chose that one. But I was asking a more general question about being connected to a piece of land.
Yeah,
Mm.
well, right, whatever, the reason, variety of reasons for making Aliyah. I have so much family there that has very little a part of the family is here in the States. So
No,
that
I
for me,
hear that. And yet, why are they there, right? I mean, I don't have to ask that. We know why they're there, but yes. Vivian, do you want to add something to that?
Yes. When we read the Torah, we know that everything was in the Torah is based on Eretz Israel. Originally, the korbanot could only be done in Yerushalayim, and all the holidays are around what happens in
Right.
It has nothing to do with our temperate climate.
Right. I
But
mean, it's a little hard for us to connect to the agricultural part for most of us, right?
And
But
also believe that at the time of Tchiyat HaMeitim, when the dead rise up, they would have to be in Israel. Would have to be there. So there were many Jews during whole historical time in the Middle Ages, and others like Yehuda Halevi and others went to Israel to die there, so that they would be buried in Israel. And then when Tchiyat HaMeitim would come, they would already rise up and already be
which
in.
is so interesting, right? Because we know
So
there's nothing left of a body. And if God can make a body come back to life, God
they
can make a body come back to life anywhere in the world. I find that a very interesting idea that people who lived outside of Israel want to be buried in Israel. I think that's an interesting
I
point.
know a lot of people did that. They went to Israel to be buried.
Still do that. Still do that.
No, I'm not planning. So no.
No, it's fine. I just find that really interesting that people want to be buried in Israel, and that also means something. So
And
I,
throughout
I would want to be buried there because my children all live there. So I'd want them to have a place to go to that's nearby, because they'll probably never come if it's outside of Israel. But I'm just saying that even that shows, I mean, if somebody who's lives in the United States doesn't ask to go to, I don't know, Romania to be buried,
no.
probably, maybe they did. Okay. Give me a moment,
I
please.
think- I think
Yes,
the
Stuart.
answer is relation. Is relation. Because
I'm sorry.
God it's relation. It comes from Shem. It's to Haran and Terah, and close by. He gave Abraham. Abraham had to go a certain place, close by, and then go to your, when his son was go to Laban, because they had nobody. He knew Laban was there. You know, go get what's his name again? Rivka, because you don't go here. Go to where I don't want my son to be married to somebody else. In this, because they can't go to Rivka and Yaakov.
Wait a second. 1 second. Stuart, 1 second.
It's all related. Everybody's related. That's why. That's why when Hashem
No, I
it's
I
all
don't know.
related.
Stuart, wait a second.
Proximity.
Stuart, I'm not following what point you're trying to make. We're asking about the connection.
If you're related to somebody, he wants his son to marry a girl who's related in the area where his daughter his relatives were. That's why he had to go to that place, and they were all related.
No, I understand that, but we're talking about the connection to the land of Israel.
Yeah, because
That's the topic.
They go and the proximity where they are. They're not going to go to South Africa. They're going where the relations are, and that's the whole story of life. Because I'm not everybody in my family is related, and they didn't give a damn about anything. That's but.
Okay, I'm not. Stuart, I hear you. I'm
They're
not
related. That's why they're related. That's why. That's
okay, Stuart.
They're all related.
Okay.
That's why.
Stuart, I
The
hear
whole
what
is
you're.
related.
I heard you. You said
The whole
related.
area is
Thank you.
related.
I heard. Yep.
That's
Yep.
why.
Got that. I'm not sure what that has to do with the physical lands of Israel. We're talking about having a homeland, but let's look at the sources now.
There's a home his relatives told Israel, go here. He told Israel,
But we
go
know,
here.
but we know that
That's why
people,
they're assimilated.
Mhm.
1 second, we know that Jews in Israel marry people outside of Israel, so I'm not sure that's so relevant to us nowadays. Not sure.
No, but I'm saying when he said go.
The reason that he told, 1 second, you're talking about something else. I'm talking about the physical land of Israel. You're talking about the fact,
I had to go someplace.
wait, Stuart,
Nearby.
Stuart, you're talking about the fact that he asked his servant to find a wife for his son. I'm not talking about that part of it. Let's just
Well,
keep it to the
that
topic.
area, because it was his cousin, that's why.
Okay.
Milk, it was his cousin. He had to go get the milk, go get, and the bond was not so good. But
All
they were
right.
all related,
Thank
that's what-
you, Stuart. I thank you. I'm not sure what that's connected to the land of Israel. Perhaps when we're in person, you could explain it better. So let's talk about the first word here, patriotism. So if you look up patriotism, because see, what to me is so amazing is that most Jews, I can't speak for every Jew, and I know that I personally am Israeli, but even though we live in America, and we consider, a lot of us, or most of us, I don't know, consider America our home, our homeland, a lot of us also consider Israel our homeland. And that's what's so interesting, even for people who even possibly never visited Israel, even for people who, even for people who don't have relatives in Israel. So that's what's so interesting to me. And so many people around the world, Jews now with everything that's happened, I believe that the outpouring of love from around the world is happening much more because it's in Israel. I would love people to weigh in on that, looking at these sources. Patriot, a fellow countryman or lineage member. Maybe this speaks a little bit to what Stuart said. But we feel that the people in Israel are also our fellow country people. The root of this word means fatherland. This actually comes from the Greek, I believe. I didn't write that in here, but it comes from the Greek. Patriotism is devoted love, support, and defense of one's country, national loyalty.
Mhm.
And what does that mean that we're loyal to America and to Israel? What does that mean to people here? Anybody have a thought about that?
Mhm.
God chose that land. That's why. God chose that land. That's why we went there.
Yes,
God
yes.
chose that
God chose it. Beautiful. Yes. Anybody else? Beautiful.
Mhm. I think
Vivian.
we feel that it's our homeland too, even though we may not physically be there. Still, emotionally, we feel that
Emotion. Yep.
connection and that it's our homeland. So,
Mhm.
so it's ours too.
Okay. I brought here two quotes that Rav Chaim Navon brought in his book. One of them, and I thought people here might be able to weigh in. Patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel.
Mm.
You familiar with this? I wasn't familiar with this quote, but it sounds like it's a very famous quote. Dr. Samuel Johnson, I wrote at the bottom, an English writer, poet, playwright, essayist, moralist, literary critic, sermonist, biographer, editor, and lexicographer. What does that mean? I mean, I think I know what it means. Anybody want to take a guess? Patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. Any thoughts?
Mhm.
Sometimes I have an idea, but some people who are nationalists, like Hitler, or Donald Trump, only my country, nationalist, supranational nationalist.
So Richard Rorty, yeah, who is an American philosopher, he says national pride, I love this quote, national pride is to countries what self-respect is to individuals, a necessary condition for self-improvement. Does this align with, like, why did God give us a land? God obviously saw that there was something that we would gain by not only having a shared Torah and a shared culture, but also a shared land.
Mhm.
National pride is
And
to
right-
countries what self-respect is to individuals, a necessary condition for self-improvement. So self-respect for individuals is important. Does anybody have something to say? Do you feel that having national pride is a necessary condition for self-improvement? Ted, Phyllis?
I
A
have
thought?
to, I have to say that my allegiance, as much as I love Israel, my allegiance is to the Jewish people, many of whom are concentrated in Israel, but for 2,000 years, we were a people without a nation, which is
Without a
pretty
nation,
remarkable.
without a land.
Without a land, I'm sorry, yes, without a
Yeah.
land. And I think that's pretty remarkable. And I feel that closeness to Jews wherever they are, whether it be in Israel or elsewhere. So my allegiance is not to the land as much as I love it, as to the Jewish people.
Which is what Bert, I think, was saying also. He says that
Yeah.
the reason he cares about Israel is because the people that live there. And is the state of Israel play a role here as well?
States are corrupt. I mean, you know, you have the same kinds of politics there that you do here or any place else.
Right.
I don't have a lot of faith in states.
Mm-hmm. Bert, you sent me a message. What do you mean? What is the citation for this particular
In other words, he says this is 100 tekus or whatever it is.
101, yeah.
Which teku is this in which Gemara?
This isn't a Gemara. I said there's some are cultural, some are historical. They're not all from the Gemara. There, he's
Oh.
quoting Professor Gerritz and Professor Elitzur in this case. Although he quotes, I'm going to show you the Kliyakar. Some of them are from Gemara. They're not all from that.
That was not his starting point.
I'm sorry. No, in this case. Now, originally, the last one I taught was Rabbi Akiva versus, I can't remember right this second, a different rabbi. That one was from Mishnaic times. So but this particular one that I chose was not. This is philosophers. This happens to be more modern. But there are many, many different ones in the book, and I'm going to see if enough of them are interesting for us to discuss. It wasn't, I'm checking it out.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bevakasha, Milton and then Vivian.
Mm.
This quote from Samuel Johnson about the scoundrels, it just reminds me of the Russian situation where you have Putin,
Yeah.
who things keep going against him in his war. But what he says is, look, this is pride of our country, of Russia, of the motherland.
Hmm.
And that's the last argument
refuge,
really
yeah.
that he has.
Yeah, it's like the tribe, right, the trump card. Wow. Yeah, nice. Good one. Vivian?
Yeah. First of all, there was always a presence of Jews in Israel, even before there was a Jewish state, that there were always communities and Jews who went there.
Always present.
Israel. So that's
There's some part of us that pulls us. I mean, I'm not sitting here to prove that Israel is our state. We're talking about, I'm assuming that's a given, at least in my mind, and that it's a given to me. Maybe not to everybody here, that God left us that, promised it to us. And
something else that I have felt from having been in Israel many, many times and spent a lot of time there, that in Israel, it is so possible to be a full Jew and observe everything so meaningfully, much more so than anywhere else.
now, is that before or after Medinat Israel? Connected to the land or connected to the fact that there's a lot of Jews there, or what?
Well, connected to the fact that there is a Jewish nation there now. And there are laws and everything, and it's around Judaism, even though there are many people who are non-observant, those who
And yet our connection to the land.
possibility of being of observing in a way that
No,
is.
no, I agree, but our connection to the land is greater than that. It's also when we don't have sovereignty.
Mm.
But thank you. I appreciate that. And certainly the connection to our history is very, very, very powerful. And I can imagine that that's one of the reasons that God designated a piece of land to be promised to us, so that we always will feel connected to it. And it goes back to the Torah. So what's interesting also is that it doesn't say really in the Torah, Eretz Yisrael, or exactly where it is. And we kind of know where it is because the Jews left Mitzrayim. So in Shemot, it says, God will bring us to Eretz Tova or Chava. This is source number 3, to a good and spacious land, Eretz Zabat Chalav Udvash, a land flowing with milk and honey. In
Right.
Yehoshua, it's referred to, this is, it's referring to the land, and it's one of, I think, Yeshua's closing remarks. Cross over into the land of God's own holding, Achuzat Hashem, where God held the land and then giving it to us, because if you continue, it says, and acquire holdings among us that we should acquire. And in Shmuel, it's referred to, in Shmuel, it's referred to, so this is a quote from a conversation between King Saul and David, who used to play for him in his court. And he said, for they have driven me out today, so I cannot have a share in the Lord's possession. Nachalat Hashem. And then it's continued, go and worship other gods. But this is the land in Nachalat Hashem. So Nachala is another word for heritage or Yerusha, inheritance. So this is, whoever said inheritance, was that Milton? This is an inheritance. And inheritance is very powerful. You know, if somebody has a watch or a painting or an artifact, you know, that's been handed down through generations, it's really meaningful and powerful for those who receive it. Maybe
Isn't
not.
there- Question. Isn't there a unit in the Tzva Haganah Yisrael called Nachal?
Yeah, but I think that's an acronym.
But yes,
But it could be an acronym because of Nachala, that could be.
right.
In Zechariah, it actually says Admat Kodesh, the Holy Land. So that's also something I just want to remind people, that we believe that there is holiness in the land of Israel. What's hard is that, what does that mean that there's holiness? What does it give us? Does it mean we're closer to God? Does it mean you have to wash yourself? Like, what does that mean? But we believe that there's holiness imbued somehow in the land itself, which is why, for example, you have to take truma, you have to tithe, and all the mitzvot that are incumbent on the land of Israel. Yes, Vivian.
Yeah, I know that we translate Kodesh as holy, but I have heard that there's another interpretation of Kodesh, which is set aside.
Yeah,
It's
separate. Yep.
special.
Much
So
better. Yep. Yep.
we interpret it that way, it's more meaningful and it's
I
understandable.
agree. Reb Jeff, my Rosh Hashiva, once had a whole talk with us, and the first thing he did in the talk was said, translate Kiddusha without using the word holy.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to do that. We could do that. We could
Special.
do that here, but maybe not yet. Yes, Bert.
I, to some extent, I'm with Ted. There's a big, I think, divide in Medina Israel / Eretz Israel with regard to precisely, you know, are we to emphasize the land of Israel or the people of Israel? And there's a big machlokus going on about that. There are people who say, well, listen, you know, we got to get every single square inch of
Right.
the land of Israel, because that's, in fact, you know, our land. And
Correct.
there are other
I agree.
our
Right.
emphasis should be on the people of Israel, and less so, if at all, on the you
Yep.
know.
Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Yep. And that's not something we're going to resolve, but I appreciate you brought it up. So here we have our first source of one side of the argument, not the side that Vivian and Judy were referring to. The Kliakar, people heard of the Kliakar? He's a famous, Kliakar means a precious vessel. And Kliakar, I love it. It's one of our classic commentaries on the Torah. And this person who, I'll just tell you who he is, I wrote in the footnote, Shlomo Ephraim ben Aaron Lunchitz, a 17th century Torah commentator. He was also rabbi of Prague. And he also wrote other things like Olelet Ephraim. I'm not familiar with the book, but it was written by the same person. Actually, I usually add an E here. So he says this, because it's mimutzaat. So mimutza in modern Hebrew means the average. It is in the middle between hot and cold, and it's at the center of the world. Who is the one who said that in previous maps? Yeah, thank you, Ted. And the blending of hot and cold relates to the midah, the characteristic of peace. I think this is so powerful. I mean, truthfully, it's not such a blending of hot and cold. It feels way hotter than cold, to tell you the truth. Israel, whoever's been in Israel in the summer, 100 degrees, and the Chamsinim, the Sharavs, it's boiling hot. But it isn't cold like it is for us in New York, that's for sure. So he sees it that God picked this very particular land, not Saudi Arabia, which has oil, and not other places, because there's something about the blending of the temperatures that is related to the midah, the characteristic of peace.
Oh, wow.
Love that. This is my favorite quote out of the whole. I love Kli Yakar in general, but I thought this was just so beautiful, and I didn't expect it when I read it. Now, Professor Tzvi Geretz, he was the one, Chaim Navon set up Tzvi Geretz and Elit Sor, Professor Elit Sor, but these are some previous quotes that they base it on. So Tzvi Geretz, I'll tell you who he is, Heinrich Gratz, or Gratz, I don't know how you pronounce it, Gratz, a German historian. He wrote, "The winds blow in the land of Israel from the mountains and from the sea, creating a fine, healthy climate." So he goes just to the climate. This is the best place to live. You couldn't find a better place. It's perfect. I'm not sure we all agree, but that is what he wrote. And that is one side of it. Now let's continue on to another side of it. Rav Shlomo Alkabetz. Rav Shlomo Alkabetz is a Kabbalist. He's the one who wrote Lecha Dodi. That's what we sing every Friday night. Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Tenei. There are many, many, many tunes. So this is a Kabbalistic response. The land of Israel has holiness in its essence. It is not like the other lands, but rather has godliness in it. And the Kuzari, somebody here quoted Rabbi Yehuda Levi, who wrote the Kuzari, the unique hidden spiritual qualities of the land of Israel are a precondition for the spiritual evolution of the people of Israel. One side is saying it's just a physical thing. It's a wonderful place to live. It's perfect. The climate is great. The other one said, no, 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 it has spiritual qualities. Now it's going to get to what Vivian said. So this is Professor Yehuda Litzor, just so beautifully wrote. The land of Israel was chosen by God specifically because living there is not easy. The Torah tells us that in the land of Israel, one must pray for rain, not like in Egypt, which has the Nile River. It's a quote from the Torah there. Also in the political arena, by the way, this is my translation. The land of Israel always hovered between two powerful, has always hovered. That would be a better way to say it. Between two powerful countries. Or too powerful, there might be a better word, but let's call it countries. Matzama is a superpower, something, and was always in danger of being obliterated between them. This is the land of personal providence, where one must always pray to God, and therefore it is impossible to forget about God. So before I show you the last source, those are the two sides. And there's no resolution. I think they both are beautiful. One is actually physical, and then taking it a little bit existential by saying it relates to the midah of peace, which is a beautiful idea. We should have peace there. We never have peace there. We strive for peace. We hope for peace. And then on the other side, no. There's godliness, there's holiness. And the way it manifests in this world is because we always have to pray to God, and therefore we never can forget God. God is always, should always be front and center.
Yeah.
Yes, Milton.
Well, geographically, where Eretz Yisrael, today's Eretz Yisrael lies, is between Asia and Africa. It is the land route. In fact, it was the land route situation that Hashem told Moshe to take Yisrael as you're going out of Egypt. Don't go by the way of the sea. Go through Moab and Ammon and that route. So it's a key place where there's fighting. We have that in some of the
It's such a gateway, you're saying. Yeah.
the gateway. It's the highway.
Oh, yeah.
And another point about that, you say where there's always fighting. That's kind of the teku, because now, with regard to the matzav in Israel, many people are talking about, well, let's just have the status quo. So is the status quo the teku? Like there is no resolution to the question.
That's interesting also. Just want to show you something that my daughter shared with me. Asher Dayan, who is a photographer from Ashkelon, found a piece of a rocket that was fired, and it just is in the shape of Eretz Yisrael.
Wow, wow, wow.
It's volcanic.
Wow.
Lava.
Really? Came from a
Looks
rocket.
like it to me.
I know, but it came from a rocket.
So that's interesting.
Yeah. All right, that's what we have today about Eretz Yisrael.
This
Love
was
to
fascinating.
thoughts,
Thank you.
feedback. Thank you,
Thank
Viv.
I found this very fascinating. Thank you.